right, welcome to your Monday morning espresso shot. And let us begin with our heart focused breathing technique. Now, please place your awareness in the area of the heart. Take slow, deep breaths. Visualize these flowing in and out of your heart. Just breathing a little slower, a little gentler than you normally would. And just these slow, deep breaths. Visualize them flowing in and out of your heart. Breathing a little slower, a little gentler than you normally would. And settle into your bodies. And if there are any thoughts that are coming through, allow them to pass through. If they are important, they will come back to you. Imagine when you take a deep breath in. With that breath, you are actually hugging your heart. Just feel that as you take a deep breath in. Your heart expands. Do you feel your body expand? It is because your heart is getting a nice, big, beautiful hug from you. And as you exhale, the heart is giving a hug to those beyond you. So just sit in that thought. And as you're taking these slow, deep breaths, that you are giving your heart a hug, and as you exhale, you are hugging those around you. So take your time with this. Slow, deep breaths. Visualize them flowing in and out of your heart. Wonderful. Maintain that awareness in the area of the heart. As you take these slow, deep breaths, visualize these flowing in and out of your heart. Breathing a little slower, a little gentler than you normally would. Wonderful. Remind your body at this point in time that this is the new normal. That breathing like this is the way breathing should be done. So that whenever you fall out of this practice, have your body remind you to get back into it. It's such a simple technique, but it has so many benefits just by slowing down your breathing technique. Wonderful. And so take the slow, deep breaths, for a few more cycles. And continue to do that even through our next segment of the I didn't know that moment. Today's topic is all about perfection, and essentially this topic is all about how we tend to want to be perfect in every way. And I couldn't help bringing this topic to the rest of you because it is one of the more important topics, and I've had to learn this lesson quite recently. This is my story, I tend to make everything perfect before I launch anything. So, before I am able to say that this part of my teamwork is ready, I need this to be perfect. And I get very exasperated when somebody else is not keeping an eye to perfection. And I didn't realize I was doing that consciously. I would just get frustrated and I would get angry. And it is when I realized, and I heard a few self-development authors who say, done is better than perfect. So do you have a story? Do you have a story where you were not willing to complete a painting, for example, until it's very perfect? Or you were not willing to submit an article or write an essay? Or you were not willing to give up the renovations in your house until they were perfect, and wait to invite others to your house so they could enjoy it as much as you do? What are some of the stories that you have in your life where you were just waiting for that perfect moment or the perfect creation? And here's the interesting aspect of that. When you do that, you are creating perfection from a human being perspective. Now, we human beings do not have a lock on perfection. We are not perfect by any means. And so what you're doing is more importantly, you're disallowing the universe to create a balanced creation for you. So, for example, for you to say, I'm going to start a painting, but I'm not going to start a painting until I've got all this other things out of the way. I've got work and I've got kids and I've got all that, so I won't start the painting. What if you did take 5 minutes out of your day? What if you did set up the canvas the first day? And what if you did come back the next day, and the next 5 minutes you just picked out a color? And what if on the third day you came back and you put a stroke on the canvas? And as you start putting stroke on the canvas, when you start putting the stroke on the canvas, and this is a metaphor, that you had this certain vision starting out saying this is what this is going to look like on the canvas. But when you start painting and you come back the next day, you have a different perspective. So you change and you move and you morph. And at the end, that painting becomes something completely different than what you started out as. Now imagine what would happen is if you waited for that perfect moment to shift everything into that direction. You wouldn't have had the creation that came from within that just allowed you. And so we talk about an unbottling. If you think of an unbottling, when you actually say that I'm going to take the step, it's not perfect, I don't have the perfect conditions under which to start this, I am just going to start unbottling, taking step one. When you take step one, 3 other options open up for you that wouldn't have opened up if you hadn't taken the first step. And that's really the story behind all of this, is that until you take that first step in an imperfect context, then the next open up for you. And you are giving up perfection for creativity. And that creativity is what will create. Some of the world's biggest mistakes were amazing. The creation was amazing. I mean, some of the vaccinations that were developed were just mistakes. The Post-it notes, which we're all familiar with, were just mistakes. People weren't going down that direction. They just ended up there. So some of the biggest creations you can have as a personal human being happen through just taking the first step and allowing yourself to experience that imperfection. So done is better than perfect. And if you are not going to start unless you feel it's perfect, then really you're not going to progress. So I would love to hear your comments. I see some comments coming through. I will tackle those comments and maybe unpack them after the next segment. So thank you so much for the engagement. Keep those comments coming in, and I'll be here for the Q&A. We can talk about that. All right? Wonderful. All right. Let us now begin our next segment of, so place your awareness in the area of the heart. And take slow, deep breaths. And visualize these flowing in and out of your heart. Breathing a little slower, a little gentler than you normally would. And just get back into this slow breathing rhythm. Just slow, deep breaths. And now begin to experience a regenerative emotion, such as love, appreciation, peace, compassion. And especially today, especially with this topic, I want you to experience the feeling of joy in imperfection. Imperfection makes you unique. Celebrate that. Celebrate that, because that makes you distinct and unique. That makes you you. The less perfect you are, the more genuine you are. Because perfection is nothing but just a mask you put on. That mask is shaped by you, based on something external to you. Take that mask off. Allow your uniqueness to shine through. Take these slow, deep breaths and give your body the permission to be imperfect. And just feel the joy of that imperfection. Because what you call imperfect is really your uniqueness, your unique talents and gifts that the universe has bestowed upon you. Even a rose has thorns, and that is a perfection. That is a creation of the universe. Would you call that imperfect? Or would you just see it as even the thorns have a rose? That with every imperfection or every quirk, there is this divine smell, this divine presence. So, does the rose grow the thorns? Or was the rose bestowed upon the thorns as a gift of being the thorns? What are you? You are unique. You are a gift to the world. So experience this regenerative emotion of you being the gift to the world, and allow yourself to express yourself without judging whether it's perfect or not. Slow, deep breaths. Visualize these flowing in and out of your heart, breathing a little slower, a little gentler than you normally would, and experiencing a regenerative emotion. Slow, deep breaths. thank you so very much for joining us this morning. Appreciate it. Thank you. And that's our 15 minutes. I'm here to stick around for the next few minutes to answer your Q&A. And we do have some people who have commented on the topic at hand. I guess it must be a hot topic. So let us go to the chat area, and please feel free to continue to type the questions in. Happy to take them. So I've got some saying, of course, Michelle and Sue, thank you for your comments about wonderful thought, hugging your heart. And Michelle from Los Angeles, good morning. And Lou, happy springtime. Yes, it is springtime. It's beautiful out there. Yes, Lou mentioned that there's very high personal standards. And yes, it is very high personal standards. And we basically feel that if we don't meet those personal standards, that we have failed or we are imperfect. And we need to be more gentle with ourselves on that. Nancy says, I've not written real estate articles because I knew they wouldn't be perfect. It was too daunting even to start. And yes, I can understand that, Nancy. And you know, I don't know what else to advise you on, but when you go down to these techniques, give yourself permission to be imperfect. And if you've got colleagues, just bounce those articles off of them and see what they say. Maybe ask them, hey, how would I change this? And see if they suggest something different. You'll find that you're being too hard on yourself. But keep soldiering on, Nancy. I'm sure you'll do well. Sue, I would like to be like this and would not ask for help at work, as I didn't want people to think I was less than perfect. This led me into problems. I've learned my lesson, thankfully. Yes. So, you know, one of the things that I have learned, I used to manage 55 or so people in the corporate world, and I was in the executive as well. And one of the things that we are taught, and we kind of don this particular persona, is if you show yourself to be less than perfect, you will be cast aside, or no one will talk to you. Well, what I found recently, studies have shown that when you show yourself to be vulnerable, people will come to you. People will want to be with you. You will be a very powerful force that actuates change in the workforce. So when you show vulnerability, you show that, look, I'm only a human being. I'm relying on everybody else. Does anybody else see a blind spot here that I'm not seeing? And if nobody speaks up, then you've got a clear green light to do whatever you need to do, because nobody else sees any imperfections at all. So to me, I thank you, Sue, for that. I hope you can continue to express your vulnerability at work. I think it's very important to do that. Sandy said, fear of first impressions with a project may not, yeah, that's right. You may not come across as credible. At least that's what your impression is. But you know what? Being a first project, somebody tagged you with that project. Somebody thought that, you know what, this is the person. If anybody is going to handle this project, it's going to be this person. And so you were given that opportunity. And so your job is to just put down your thoughts and say, I'm open to anybody changing this direction. Tell me and explain to me why we need to do something different, or why we need to adjust this, and I'll be happy to take your input. When you approach it like that, you actually show vulnerability, that you're not the expert in everything, that you're open to suggestions. Thank you for that, Sandy. From Chawa, I have reaction I guess you're saying you have reaction every time you didn't finish the thing. Oh, here, I have reaction every time when encountered imperfect situation. What can I do? Breathe through it. Breathe through it. Imperfection situation. If you feel you're causing the imperfection, or you are imperfect, breathe right through it. And allow your body to be imperfect. Listen to this recording, because in this meditation, I hadn't intended on going down this path on the second half of this meditation. But really, we're allowing our body to release any expectations we have. Allow yourself to be imperfect. And that's all you do, is just give your heart a hug, just like you do when you take the slow, deep breaths. That's pretty much what I would suggest we do. Lou, boy, do we judge ourselves and others compared to this fictitious standard ever? Absolutely. Absolutely. We have this fictitious standard of perfection and we judge ourselves. We need to be more compassionate with ourselves. So celebrate your quirks, celebrate your uniqueness, celebrate your imperfections, right? Wonderful. Being authentic from Lou. Being authentic is showing up as we are, not some ideal, right? And Chawa saying, I felt very stressful or unhappy. Yes, you know what? That's exactly what it is. When we set our bar up this high, we will never reach it. I have a client that I do a business coaching with, and he mentioned to me that his mom was never happy with him. And I said to him, if you were to land the biggest deal of your life, and if your mom were still alive, what would she say? And his response was, she'd be neutral. She wouldn't jump up and down for joy, but she wouldn't knock him down a peg either. So it was his bar that he needs to have his mom say some amazing things. He was looking for the accolades from his mom. And when I asked him, when you have the biggest deal of your life, his mom would not even reach that artificial level that he's setting the bar for himself. The setting the bar for himself was having his mom pat him on the back, was his bar. So I want you to be careful. I want you to be cognizant of that. Are you setting a bar that you're going to say that somebody is going to pat me on the back? Because you cannot control that. That's something that you're setting yourself up for failure. Or are you going to say, today I am going to set the bar higher for myself. This is what I've achieved in the past, but if I set it up higher, I'll be happy that I've grown. So set a bar for yourself where you can pat yourself on the back, no matter what anybody else says. And when you can get to that point, you've broken through this mastery. All right? Wonderful. Lou says, speaking of body, Will slipped on ice a month ago and is just becoming able to get off the sofa and almost walking again. Lots of time for HeartMath, which has helped him get through the pain. No doubt, no doubt. Will, I hope you're doing well and recover quickly. And yeah, wishing you all the best. I know there's gardening season coming up. Both you and Lou need to get off your duff and go out there and play with the fairies in the garden. I know how much passionate you are about that. Thank you so much for this wonderful, wonderful, you're welcome, Sue, this wonderful, wonderful engagement today. I wanted to thank you and happy spring to everybody, and I look forward to connecting with you next Monday.